Okay, excellent. Good morning, everybody. My name is Charles Bonas. I'm from London. I'm just out in the countryside at the moment. I know we have people from all around the world. I've just spotted some of our friends from India. So welcome and thank you for joining us. We're most grateful to Alex Koch, Gooreynd, head of Swiss Network, and Knight Frank for putting this together and working tirelessly. Fortunate to have Aline Dénéréaz, the founder of Transforma, who's a leading tax expert in Switzerland, with us as well. I'm going to just introduce for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to ask Richard McDonald, who probably has forgotten more about international education than anyone will ever know. He was head of Aiglon for 16 years, and he's now executive director of Aiglon College in Villars. And while this is a talk about Swiss schools and Swiss education, I wanted to focus on Richard's school a little bit because it's really one of the great boarding schools in the world. I think the offering at Aiglon is exactly what parents should be looking for in Switzerland. Villars, of course, if you didn't know, is probably the only educational hub in the Alps. It's the only resort or town that has more than 2 or 3 schools in it. So it's a very interesting destination. Bonas MacFarlane is an advisory company based in London, and we have spent nearly 30 years helping mainly international families move into different education systems. So that's really our speciality. What I would say is that parents often spend too much time focusing on the league tables and what they perceive to be the standard of the school without looking at the environment in which that school sits. It's completely not the case that you need to go to a highly academically selective school in a polluted inner city in London or New York or Singapore to gain access to one of the top global universities, whether it be Ivy League, Oxford or Cambridge, or a medical school. Switzerland offers a very good number of international schools that gives access to those leading institutions. And when particularly considering the American university landscape, it's absolutely vital to play a part in your community to develop a strong extracurricular profile, show leadership, socialization skills, and all of these come to the fore in a boarding school. I'm very grateful to be talking about Switzerland. It's a country that's very dear to my heart. And in terms of the environment, again, it has a really deep culture with many languages and such variety, and it's extraordinary how one can go to the next valley from Villars and be almost in a different country. And it's a great place to live, and it's very well governed. And I think at a time when this rather psychopathic cold is laying bare the manifest failings of governments all around the world, the idea of relocating to possibly the best governed country in Europe, which I think we should all be applying to join the Swiss Confederation, is a really positive thing. So Switzerland, great country, fabulous schools, and over to Richard to start, please.
Good, Charles. Thank you very much for that broad introduction. And just to make anybody who's not in Switzerland right now envious, I'm looking out of the window. I'm hearing probably more bird song than I've ever heard in my lifetime, for reasons we can probably guess at. Cloudless skies, snow-capped mountain tops, and it all seems pretty amazing considering what a strange world we seem to be living in at the moment. Charles is...
And Richard, can I just interrupt you a second? I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this. During the talks, if anyone has got any questions, we'd be very grateful if you could go to the top of your screen where there is 3 little buttons. If you pull down on that, you can enter into the chat, and then you can make comments as you go along, which we will endeavour to respond to during the session today. But we've only got sort of 45 minutes, and if anyone would like to continue the conversation with us directly afterwards, then we'd be most happy to talk to you either on email or in phone or whatever. So sorry, Richard, do go ahead.
Thanks very much for that. So, Charles, you kindly gave a brief introduction. It might be helpful if I just spend a few moments introducing who I am and why I feel I have some capability to talk about the scene in Switzerland, the educational scene. I've in total been in school leadership roles in Switzerland for 26 years, most of those in Aiglon, some in Bourselet, which is another boarding school in Villars. But I've also been very actively involved in the Swiss group of international schools, so working quite closely, not just with boarding schools, but also with the many excellent and prestigious international day schools around the country. So it really has an amazing concentration of international schools. And I think that word international, or perhaps better still, interculturalism, is something I'll come back to, because I think it's really one of the defining factors of what makes so many of the Swiss international schools, day schools and boarding schools stand out. Obviously, Switzerland has a little bit of a history with education and international education. It's taken a little while to shake off this notion that somehow Swiss schools are just posh finishing schools for the ultra wealthy. And I think for a very, very long time, the leading schools have really made it very clear that they want to compete with the very best international schools and indeed national schools, boarding and day, offering outstanding programs, not just of academic excellence, but of character development, character training through a range of particular ways. In a moment, I'll perhaps talk in a bit more detail about how Aiglon fits into that landscape. But it might also be good to think about what it is about the Swiss landscape that makes it really well suited to a school our kind. I think I was recently shown the latest prosperity index, which has been issued by a group called Legatum. And what is very striking about that is how Switzerland sits right at the top there in terms of all things related to safety and security. And that has to be a great attraction for a school in Switzerland, that we don't really have to stress unduly about the levels of safety and security that the country can provide, both locally and nationally. And again, on that same index, in terms of economic, sustainable wealth controls and management, it's in second position only to Singapore. In terms of health, it's again right up in the top three. Conditions for enterprise and business, again top three. Quality of life and living conditions, again top four. And natural environment, again, needs very little for us to know that we live in an exceptional natural environment. So all of those, I think, set that broader landscape. And then as far as the schools themselves are concerned, what is it that they're doing that perhaps other schools can't offer? And I think there is this long tradition of recognizing that a holistic education in which the development of the whole person is ultimately going to leave the most powerful and transformational changes through that educational journey that young people take. And I think boarding schools, I've described myself as a boarding school junkie. I was born in a boarding school and I've lived in or close to boarding schools all my life. What is very apparent through that is that it is not it's not a place you go to and come away from. It is a life. It's a whole lifestyle in terms of the relationships that you build with your teachers and with other fellow students. So I think those are the opportunities that a boarding school experience can give. And we repeatedly hear back from our former students that of all the things that really lasts with them, that bonding with the people they shared their educational experience with residentially was very, very powerful and shaping. Charles mentioned briefly Villars as a bit of a hub. We are indeed a rather strange hub, in as much as we're a small ski village, town, community of just over 2,500 people. But we have two boarding schools going up to pre-university, and we have two junior boarding and day schools in the village. So there's a real concentration of international education, which has many benefits for us and as a community. So we do all that we can to be woven into the community. So the experience of people who come to live and study in our schools is really integrated with our community as well. So they have a truly Swiss experience. I mentioned earlier on the issue of how we, in a boarding school experience, we do much more than provide the academic core. But I think the way we do that, and I speak perhaps more specifically of Aiglon now, is by being very anchored in a set of guiding principles, which focus around the balanced development of mind, body, and spirit. And that seems to resonate very, very strongly with the people who choose to put their children into Aiglon. And we talk about doing that through 5 pathways. And those pathways are, first of all, challenge. We believe that people should be intellectually, physically, emotionally, morally challenged. They should be in that challenge zone to promote the best possible learning. We encourage, as a second path, the route of respect. Respect starts with respect for yourself, respect for others, and then, of course, respect for your environment, either locally or globally. And the third of those pathways is responsibility. We believe that young people need to be taught that they need to take responsibility for their actions and that they have an opportunity to be shaping in important things that can make the world a better place. We talk our 4th pathway about diversity. I touched how diverse Switzerland is. Our school, with 370 students, we have 64 different nationalities. Everybody's in a minority, and our experience is that that's a very positive shaping factor. But diversity is not just about nationality, it's also about culture, it's about attitude, and it's about ideas, and we welcome that diversity. And finally, our 5th way that we talk about is service, and arguably the most important of all, that we want to instill in young people a sense that it's greater to give than to take, and that we have great opportunities through our education to be transformers in a positive sense in the lives of others. So those would be the core Aiglon guiding principles. What does that look like in reality? Well, it starts obviously with the core curriculum. We have students that go from the age of 9 right up to the age of 18. We've designed our own curriculum up to the age of 14 and 15. We then do GCSEs, IGCSEs for most of the students as pre-IB preparation, and then we offer the IB diploma program for students in their final 2 years. Charles also referenced the importance for schools in Switzerland of access to universities worldwide. We've certainly found that the IB program, besides being philosophically well aligned with the values of the school, we find that it's an excellent springboard for access to top universities around the world. And when I say top universities, I also mean the right universities. Not every student is going to go to Stanford or to Cambridge, but we work very hard to make sure that we have the right fit for the right students. So university access, a great platform. And these universities like the diversity that Swiss schools can provide. In terms of the co-curriculum, we lay great emphasis on character development, personality development through activities outside the classroom. So using our natural environment to the very, very best effect to prompt those qualities that we think really can be transformational. I think all schools, and I think Swiss schools are very strong in this area, recognize the importance of care and well-being. It's become increasingly a top concern and an issue for schools and for parents as we manage young people to keep them happy, focused, positive. I think Swiss schools recognize the brilliant opportunities of their environment. So a lot of our activities at Aiglon are expedition-based. and we consider that to be a real benefit and strength of the school. A couple of other things I just wanted to touch on, again picking up, echoing points from Charles. The lack of league tables in Switzerland, I think, is greatly liberating, and I feel very sorry for schools that have to deliver programs that in one way or another are going to be shaped by opinions on league tables. So in that respect, I think we like to judge human qualities in ways that can't be properly reflected in a league table. So just really to sum up, and I'm very open to questions at a later stage, Switzerland, phenomenal environment in terms of safety, quality, reliability, diversity, a range of schools. There are no two schools that are identical. I've always encouraged people, if they are interested in a school in Switzerland, visit at least 2 or 3, because you're going to find very different schools. You're going to walk into those schools and say, this feels right for my child. And that's terribly important as a boarding parent. There are some outstanding institutions across the country, and I really would encourage you, in summary, to look very, very closely at some of these leading schools in the world.
Thank you very much, Richard, and very comprehensive introduction. Could you maybe just spend a minute or two talking about the concept of less academically selective schools? Because this is a real crux that, from my point of view, education is all about confidence. Where is a child going to be most confident? And if they're confident and then they're happy, they can become really top students. But if you have a highly academic student, how can you make sure that a slightly less academically selective school will provide the potential opportunities that a famously academic institution will? And that clearly reflects in your university results, which you might want to allude to as well.
I think really to answer that well, we also have to break a little bit the shackles of what is assumed to be an academically able or motivated students. We have students who come to us from a very wide range of schools around the world, and I know this is the experience of many of my colleagues as well. And they are able to show areas of excellence and perform to a very high level in areas that maybe they wouldn't have been able to if they weren't in an environment like Aiglon. So whilst we don't claim to be an academic hothouse, we would certainly be very confident that our students of highest potential can achieve that. We've had a number of students recently who've got 45, maximum 45 in the IB, and these are often students who've done everything else as well. So the ability to stretch at the top end, I think our leading schools really perform extremely well there. And I would say also at the end where students maybe they feel they're a marginal candidate for the IB, we've had many successes with students that come in and they find their areas of strength, maybe their language skills, because many of our students are bilingual, trilingual, or quadrilingual. And our experience also is that the things that are happening in a co-curricular context build the levels of confidence and personal drive and motivation that spill across into the classroom. So I think we've got some great top quality educators in Switzerland. It's a country that can attract top teachers from schools all over the world. So I think the competencies are there. But I think even for a school that may describe itself, we describe ourselves not as a selective school, but as a deselective school. We will let you know if we think Aiglon is not the right school for your child to come and succeed, and there may be constraints for that, but we try to be quite open to the range of students we accept, provided they're motivated and are going to be able to access and thrive in the curriculum that we offer.
Thank you very much, Richard. So we've given an introduction to the what, and I think if we now move on to the how does one achieve this move to Switzerland, which I hope you're all considering if you weren't before. So could we just introduce again Aline Dénéréaz, who's the founder of Transforma, and she is a legal expert who's going to talk about some of the fiscal issues involved in settlement in Switzerland. Do we have Aline? Aline.
Aline, you need to unmute.
Okay, now it's better? It's good?
Go. Hi.
Okay, good. Okay, super. Hello to everybody. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. I'm very pleased to present the legal and tax issues and questions. I will try to upload a presentation. Let me see if I can do that. That looks good. Do you see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. I need to go. I'm not able to move the presentation, that's a problem.
Well, we can see it.
Can you see the second page with the residence and work?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good, super. Okay, so I'm a tax lawyer and a tax expert. I have 20 years of experience of relocating, and very frequently we have clients sending their children to a Swiss school, and then they might also want to relocate to be close to their children, or they might remain in their country of residency, but will be interested to buy a holiday home to spend the holidays with the children, to spend more time with them. So we are specialized in advising them on that. Very brief, residence and working permit in Switzerland for EU citizen, as you see on the slide, it's pretty easy for the moment. So usually you have the right as a EU citizen to apply for a working and residence permit in Switzerland, as long as you have either a working permit with a Swiss company or enough means to live in Switzerland. For the moment, UK is considered as European. It will also be the case in the next 2 years, and then we hopefully will have a bilateral contract with UK, so that this is continuing to be the same rules. Non-European citizens, more complicated. If the one of the clients of the couple is older than 55 and has a strong connection to Switzerland, also easy, or at least feasible. Again, you need to prove that you have enough means to live in Switzerland. The other solution is to set up a business for non-European in Switzerland and to have a working permit with their own company. You will need a good business plan, a good explanation, and we will need to show to the Migration Office and to the Labor Office that the person you employed is really necessary for the Swiss economy. It's possible, we can help to do that, but it's not easy. And then the second, for very wealthy client, is to apply for a lump sum taxation and to come, because the canton, one of the canton of Switzerland, is asking the federal government, please give a permit to this person because we have a fiscal interest to have it. This means that usually you are paying roughly 500,000 Swiss francs or dollar taxes per year. In best case, usually it's even more, between 800 and 1 million taxes. So it's for very
Aline?
clients. Yes?
So that's your third slide, ordinary lump sum?
It's the residence and work permits in Switzerland.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. Sorry.
Is that fine?
Yes. Yeah. Just when you're ready to move down to the next slide, if you can do it. Yeah.
So the next slide is the taxation in Switzerland. Usually you have either you work in Switzerland and then worldwide taxation of income and wealth, and or for wealthy clients, it can be interesting not to work in Switzerland, not to be a Swiss citizen, and then the clients can apply for a lump sum taxation called based on the costs of living in Switzerland. Basically, it's the worldwide living costs, or then the living expenses, or the rental value. I will come back to that. Very briefly, ordinary taxation full tax liability. Worldwide income and worldwide wealth is taxed basically, but private capital gains on tangible assets are not taxed as long as you are not qualified as a traders. A private equity manager or a hedge fund manager would qualify obviously as a qualified trader. Capital gain on foreign real estate are not taxed. Foreign salaries, if there is a double tax treaty. Profit from foreign LLPs with substance abroad also. And if an irrevocable discretionary trust has been set up before to come to Switzerland, that would also not be taxed. But the irrevocable discretionary trust would need to be recognized according to the Swiss tax rules as such. We have progressive tax rates. You will see on one of the next slides, different in each canton, in each commune, and depending on the income. So rental income, rental value of foreign real estate are taken in consideration for the measurement of the tax rate, foreign permanent establishment as well, and foreign salaries as well, depending on the double tax treaty. So that's if somebody is coming to Switzerland, take employment, or is, let's say, has income of less of 500,000 and a wealth less of 10 million Swiss franc or dollars, then it will probably be the best thing to go on ordinary taxation and to go according to these rules. For a person being more wealthy or having more income than roughly 500,000, wealth of more than 10 million, it might be interesting to apply with the canton tax authority to be taxed according to lump sum taxation, condition not to be a Swiss citizen. Both spouses now haven't been resident in Switzerland the last 10 years, no gainful activity. So charitable activities are usually allowed, but it's not possible to be, for instance, board member of a Swiss company. Basically, the person should not have business meetings in Switzerland. And then to have main residence in Switzerland to have an L, B, or C permit. In this case, for this person, the basis of the taxes is not the worldwide income and wealth, but it's all the worldwide living expenses. So we do a budget with the client and show that to the tax authorities. Or then it's 7 times the rental value or the deemed value, rental value of the house the clients are buying in Switzerland. So, or then if they have Swiss investments in shares or in real estate, it will be the Swiss sourced. From these 3 points, it will be the highest one which will be taxed. It must be at least 400,000 in all cantons. Depending on the canton, it's going the minimal taxation of income, the taxable income will be in some cantons 500, 700, up to 700. So this is a negotiation with the tax authorities. We present it with the name of the client, with the profile, the CV of the clients, and the budget. And of course, we need to know where the client will live and what real estate he will live in or rent it or both. Maybe just to mention, there is no lump sum taxation anymore in Zurich, Basel, Schaffhausen, and Appenzell. Don't forget that until to be 65 years old for the men and 64 for the women, there is additional 24,800 social security to contribute to Switzerland per person, per adult. But the advantage is that foreign income and wealth are not considered for the taxation, and the tax authority will not be interested. Now with the CRS rules, they receive in some cases the information from foreign banks, but they will not consider it. We usually count that with lump sum taxation, the clients are paying at least 130,000 Swiss francs taxes per year. Frequently, it's more between 160 and 200. As larger the house is, of course, as more you pay taxes on it. We had a client with a very big house where at the end of the story, it was less expensive to go for regular taxation, even he was very wealthy, than to go to lump sum taxation because the house was so expensive and so big. So that's lump sum taxation. Quite a lot of our clients sending their children to private Swiss schools will not relocate themselves to Switzerland, but stay a resident in their country, but will be interested to have a holiday home and here to spend more time in Switzerland and learn also more about Switzerland as their children are doing. If they buy a real estate with the help of Alex and his team, they will have also a limited tax liability in Switzerland for the rental, for the house. The rental value will be taxed. Usually you are allowed to rent out the house up to 1/3 of the year, and this will be also taxed. Maintenance costs and mortgage can be deducted. And then the tax value, it's usually between 50 and 80% of the market value is the tax value. That's also taxable. Mortgage on this house can also be deducted. The tax rate is either with the maximal tax rates, if you are not disclosing your income and wealth situation worldwide, or then a full declaration is necessary to limit the maximal tax rate if it's worse. That's something we help the clients to calculate what is less expensive for them. Is it worth to go for a full tax return, or is it fine to just take the maximal tax rate applicable? The day the house in Switzerland is sold, there is a taxation of capital gain on cantonal and communal level. And in some cases, inheritance and donation tax might be applicable according to Swiss rules because it's a Swiss real estate. Maybe just 2 words to the tax rates. You see the difference. I'm happy to send also the overview in a PDF where you can read it better maybe. Canton of Schwyz, close to Zurich, is the lowest one income tax rate with a maximum at 21.9 in the lowest commune. And then you have the highest one in Canton of Geneva and in Vaud, where it's the best one. It's the highest taxation. It's always a discussion, but in 20 years, I have almost never seen a client just deciding where he's going with the tax rates. It's always a mix of different things, where you find a nice house, where you find you are comfortable, do you speak the language. There are a lot of different things to think about, which school the children are going. So tax rates is certainly something to consider, but it's not really the only one, and certainly not what is taking the decision at the end. Also, the tax rates for the wealth tax applicable with the lowest in the center of Switzerland and the highest in Geneva. Just a few words about donation. There is a donation and inheritance tax in Switzerland, but spouse are exempt and children, direct descendant are exempt as well. And that will be frequently the case when the children are going to school. Then you have obviously the next generation, so no problem. In Canton Vaud, Neuchâtel and Geneva, there is also, under certain circumstances, limited taxation of a few percentage for direct descendants. And then, of course, irrevocable trust might be a solution for that. Maybe just a word for, I have not a slide on it, but just to mention that children being in Switzerland in school, the years between 12 and 18 are counting double. And for getting a Swiss passport, you need 5 years. So basically, a child coming with 12 to a boarding school in Switzerland might be able to apply when he's 18 and starting to study in Switzerland to apply for a Swiss passport, because he has already the 10 years necessary. He knows the language usually, he is well integrated, so an application could be possible. We help different children of our clients to apply for the passport, and they received it. Of course, usually they need to start at least to study also in Switzerland, because it needs 2-3 years to get the passport after the application. So I would say that's all on my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. An excellent summary of a most complex area of law, and most grateful to you. Can we finally hear the great Alex Koch de Gooreynd, head of Swiss network at Knight Frank, probably the most prestigious global real estate advisors and agency. And Alex is a great authority.
Thanks very much, Charles, very kind. I'm also going to try and share my screen. I hope it's working now. I don't know if you can see all the slides. Can you so far? Yeah, yes. Fantastic, yes. Fantastic. Yeah. Great. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. Charles, thank you, and Guy for helping put this together. Really what I wanted to do is just spend the next sort of, I think, 10 minutes on giving you an insight really into some lifestyle choices that a lot of our clients take. And just to give you a kind of a brief scenario about some of the areas that we sort of particularly focus on. If I, let me try and put this into a slideshow, which might make life a little easier. There we go. Lovely pictures of Switzerland. There we go. For most of you, I'd like to hope that everybody knows who Knight Frank are. On the odd occasion, I come across people who don't. We are the world's largest privately owned real estate firm. We have about 523 offices globally. Realistically, we're not a franchise business. We are a firm that specializes in guiding clients, helping clients through that kind of property journey. In Europe, we felt that the best way was to work with local experts in every market. So local people who have been living and breathing that market for the last 20, 30 years. Those are the people we want to be working with, not somebody who just wants our brand. But it does mean that when you get off an aeroplane and go into a new territory, that you're going to be guided around by an expert. For my part, I've been working in the Swiss market now for about 12 years. When we first started in Switzerland, we concentrated our efforts in Geneva as a first step, but we've now expanded, and I think are probably the only network which covers all three main languages of the French, Italian, and German-speaking regions. I think probably for us, we're probably about 50, although these are where our offices are predominantly, where you see the little marks. Effectively, we have access to probably about 15 or 16 different locations around the country. And our teams cover the entire market, whether it's a studio apartment at 250 or 300,000 Swiss, going up to an estate I saw recently at over 100 million. So we cover the entire market and help clients, both buyers and also sellers, who are looking to get more involved in the marketplace. Really what I'm going to focus on today, while of course the Swiss schools are excellent across the country, we find that majority of our clients tend to focus their efforts towards the French-speaking part of Switzerland. And of course, having Richard on board from Aiglon, it helps that we look at sort of Vaud, Geneva, and Valais as three main cantons. Of course, you've got other schools, including, of course, La Rosée School up in Gstaad, and the American school there. But if we focus on those three cantons just to start with, but of course, anybody who's attending this seminar would like more information on other regions, then of course, we're happy to help. So looking at these kind of markets, I thought it might be useful just to give you a sense of actually what is the property market in Switzerland and how effective it is. you know, we notice that this graph shows you the sort of last 20 years or so of price growth throughout the markets. You can see in the sort of financial crisis that there was a real flight to safety, a flight to sort of security. And so the markets went very, very active, in particular in Geneva, for a good 5 years. After that, it started to cool a little bit, where I think vendor aspirations were a little bit on the high side. And so we saw prices tailing off a little bit. And then when the Swiss franc depegged against the euro, that saw a slight fall. What I must point out, though, is in the canton of Geneva, there is lots and lots of reporting. This is one of the most widely reported cantons for us, so we have all the data that even though you see those last, should we say, the last 5 or 6 years where the market hasn't been as, the growth hasn't been so severe or so strong, there are still deals being done above 10 million, about 20 a year. So the market is still strong. It is a very big market, and overall in the prestige market, there are sort of a good sort of 30 to 40 deals being done every year above that sort of 5 million range. So it's a strong area and a strong market. And why is this? Well, you know, if you have corporation tax in Geneva and Vaud of 14%, you've got big companies like Facebook, Microsoft, and Google who are very active in both Geneva and Zurich, expanding recently their footprint in office space, etc. One of the things that Richard mentioned is that Switzerland is seen, I think my face is actually covering the slide, but there's a stat there which says that there are 4 Swiss cities in the top 10 of Mercer's area for personal safety. I had a client who was coming from Eastern Europe who was looking to relocate to Geneva. And the main reason, he said, that the tax was an element, and tax was something he was interested in, but realistically it was about personal safety for his children, it was about economic stability, and of course the world-class education. And it was those key things which I think have really sort of driven clients sort of moving forward. One of the big things that we always get asked about is this belief that a foreigner can't buy in Switzerland. There is a law called Lex Koller. This is the law which rules really the purchase of real estate in Switzerland. I'll tell you what the legal position is it says that the purchase of residential real estate can only be taken or only performed by Swiss passport holders and those in possession of a Swiss residency permit, with the exception of designated holiday zones within the country, where a non-Swiss based resident can purchase 1 property per named individual with a maximum of official living space of 200 square meters. Now, there's a lot of said, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about the holiday homes a little later. As Aline mentions, there are also slight differences on how you arrive in Switzerland and apply for your permit, whether you arrive with a European passport, European Union passport, or a non-European passport. As a European Union passport holder, the permit process is fairly simple, and you are not restricted on the size of property or the number of properties that you buy. I say this because we have a number of larger residences where the main house and, let's say, the driveway is 1 plot, and then you'll have a second plot, which is, let's say, a guest house or further land parcel. And if you are arriving there with a non-European passport, you are restricted to 1 property with a maximum of 2,500 square meters of land, which does mean that you would struggle to be able to buy something with those 2 parcels of land, because the Swiss see that as 2 separate properties. So it is always important to understand, you know, do your due diligence first, speak to somebody like an Aline to understand how you should arrive in the country, and then realistically what is realistic for what you can buy. As I say, I'll come back into the holiday home a little bit later as to what you can buy, and also how there is not flexibility within the law, but whether there is what the options are that we can still maximize space. But I've got to tell you, if you are thinking of buying a holiday home because you would like to be near your children who are attending La Rosée and you would like to be in Rolle, This is not a holiday zone, so it would be impossible, which means that areas like Villars, areas like Verbier, Crans-Montana, these are particularly popular with clients because they can buy a holiday home directly close by to the school. So if I drill into, I'm doing it canton by canton, pure and simply because this is obviously the taxation changes as you cross the borders of a canton. All I want to really highlight on here is the Swiss, when you go to Geneva canton, should you decide that this is the market for you, because you need to get to an office every day, or you need to be able to have much closer access to the airport. The side of the lake that you're located on is probably your key criteria. This is the area that you really need to think about carefully, because the traffic to get across the bridge from one side of the lake to the other in the morning is dreadful, and it can take you a significant amount of time. So if your office is on the area where you see the words of Gentot, Versoix, Preny-Chambésy, and you're living on the other side of the lake, this process can take you a lot longer than it should normally. So a lot of our clients whose office is on the side, now left bank and right bank, I think is quite key to understand. If I look at that map, I would imagine that the area of Coligny and Collonges-Bellerive is on the right bank and the other is on the left. Unfortunately, the Swiss have it completely the other way around. It is due to the direction of the water. So it comes from the mountain down the lake going towards Geneva. So the left bank is Coligny and the right bank is Gentot-Versoix. On the right bank, you have potential noise issues with the airport, you have the railway line, and you have the motorway. So a lot of clients have started looking towards the left bank because they have much quieter surroundings, and you have areas like Coligny-en-Vendôme, which are particularly popular. And then, of course, the main international schools head office or the main area is in Chambougerie. So a lot of clients like to be in this particular area. Just to be wary, Coligny, it's all about topology in this area. So if you have children who enjoy a game of football, living in Coligny could be tough because the land is very steep. So you'll be forever running down to the bottom of the garden to try and pick up the ball. So it is thinking about where, again, lifestyle is so important when you come and look at property and understanding what is possible and what could be bought there. I think the only other thing that to note really is the Swiss will understand, or the Swiss have it in their mind, that if it's longer than 15 minutes, it's not an acceptable commute. Now, I'm currently calling you from my daughter's bedroom in the countryside where I normally travel to London every day, and it takes me a good hour to get to the office. And I would say the majority of people who are coming from a large city from around the world will expect a 30-minute, 40-minute commute. If you're living in Agnières, the area on the left bank, to the top end, just before the border with France, this is still well within that time period. I mean, it would take you 10 to 15 minutes, let's say, to get into the center of Geneva. But for the Swiss, they would feel that you're in a different country. Why would you go so far away? So you will get value as you get further away. If I dart into the canton of Vaud, there's a lot of information on this slide. I'm not going to go through all of it. It's literally more for you to be able to look at carefully, maybe after this presentation. I think that really I've highlighted three key areas, really. The area between the canton of Geneva and Nyon, the kind of area of Mi, Coppet, and Founé, where you have the La Châtaigneraie, which is the other international school campus. It's a very good international community there. We find a lot of the international community live in that part because it's Vaud canton, so the taxation is a little bit less on some occasions for some people, and then you're easy access into Geneva if you need to commute. Then if you start to move around the lake towards past Nyon, between Nyon and Lausanne, this area is known as La Côte. This is where you're starting to see the lakefront estate. So if you have aspirations of a lawn leading down to the lake, then this is the area that you really need to focus on, because this is where the larger estates are located and you're getting wonderful views and much more privacy. There's no airplane noise here, and it's a very good area for that. To warn you though, lakefront estates probably start at about 15 million Swiss francs. There are some less, but they tend to be houses which require a great deal of work. So I would work on the basis of about a 15 million starting point, going up to the larger estates, which are well over 100. And then the only other area I've highlighted here is La Côte hillside, which you can see the arrow leading to the area above kind of Rolle and Morges, where the topology there is starting to get steeper and you're getting the lower Jura region of the hillside. So you're getting fabulous views down the valley and over towards the lake. And a lot of the English and international community look at this region because they say it's quite easy access to get to the airport, but it's also a much shorter journey for me to get up into the mountains to go skiing at the weekends. So they see it almost as a sort of halfway point. Not quite, but it's a little bit like that. Then the only other area really I wanted to focus on for clients is because of the St. George's School in Clarens, which is close to Montreux, we have a lot of interest in that area for people who want to take advantage of living in the region. The area around Montreux is the only area around Lake Geneva where a non-resident can buy an apartment. Or can buy a property there. So it becomes there are almost two different price levels. There is the residence market and then the non-residence market. And I would say the non-resident market is almost double the price for price per square meter for an apartment that could be bought by a non-resident. So if you're taking residency, the houses here there are a lot of kind of English style mansions with lovely views of the lake. It's a very popular place to be, but access to the airport, you're still within an hour, but it probably is a bit farther if you're trying to do it on a daily basis. So just looking at the non-resident side of the Vaud canton is this far end bit surrounding kind of Vevey and Montreux. I think most of the non-resident stock tends to be apartments. There are one or two houses that I'm aware of, but they tend to be, there is one highlighted here on the left-hand side of the screen, which is in Villeneuve, just past Montreux. And that is a fairly typical, but remember, it has to have less than 200 square meters of official living space. You'll see that there is a little bit more, but some of that can be taken off the main calculation if it's basement or it's below a certain height in the ceiling, or if it can be construed as being a large cupboard if it's a dressing room. So there are areas you can shave that number off. But Montreux is particularly popular with foreigners looking at this area because of the jazz festival, the fact that it almost doubles in size during the summer. Then if we go up into the mountains, I highlighted Villars, sorry, just beforehand there. Actually, I might go back just to show the Villars as was. Oh, no, that didn't work very well. I might stay on Valais then. I might get that wrong. Richard, I'll come back to Villars to highlight it for you. Don't worry. With the two markets in Valais, I wanted to sort of focus on just because these are the only two where there is a private school, Verbier and Crans-Montana. I would say Verbier is definitely for the person who wants very, very good quality skiing, but also there is a very, very vibrant nightlife in Verbier, so it's a very active resort, whereas Crans-Montana is seen more as a family and all year round resort due to the golf courses there. So slightly different feel to it. Villars, I would say, is on a similar par as an all-round resort due to the level of infrastructure improvements that have been done in the resort recently, and the fact that, as Richard says, you have almost 800 students there all year round. There is always life in the resort, even when the others have gone quiet. This is really where you want to be in a resort where there is life all the time. The anomalies, these are two. So this is two properties if you as a client were thinking of buying something larger as a non-resident. And I said it's not going around the law, but it's understanding where the resorts in particular have looked to be flexible. This is a chalet in Villars, which is well over 500 square meters, so would not be normally allowed for a foreigner to buy. However, the way that it's been designed is that there are two main entrances to the chalet. There are two areas which are completely separate, which therefore means that the chalet could be broken up into two virtual apartments. For you and I walking in there, and for any of your guests, it seems like one house. But I would just say that for a lot of people, they look at this and there is a way that you can buy that in two individual names. Now, husband and wife are seen as one, but you are able to buy it as, let's say, two brothers, or if your children are aged over 18, then they can buy it in their names. So larger estates can be bought. The one on the right is seen as a résidence hôtelière, so it's a property which offers full service, has many this property is almost 1,000 square meters. This is an example. It's not actually on the market, but this is an example of a chalet that could be bought by a non-resident. You just have to rent it out when you're not using it and ensuring that the services continue. Barrage of information, I'm sure, but we have plenty of guides to sort of help you through, including a schools guide, which is due to come out in about early June. So do come to me later. But I've gone over a little bit, so sorry, Charles. But thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Alex. It's really, really informative and interesting. Just to ask everybody, if they haven't done it yet, on the top of the screen, there's a green Poland progress pull down. If you wouldn't mind pulling that down and just answering a few questions, which just for us to know where you're from. It will all be kept confidential. After this webinar, we'll be sending you contact details of the three speakers and the presentations, and there'll also be a recording. And so I just end by saying that international schools, I think, are really compelling places. They build confidence in children in a way that, say, a British boarding school or a local school doesn't. I'm not saying that they're better or worse, but there's something particularly compelling about this offering, particularly when we see these schools in such fabulous surroundings and community surroundings. And these resorts, just to reiterate what the speakers have been saying, these resorts are really becoming their own communities now. It's a great place to grow up, Switzerland, particularly in the towns that we've mentioned. So if you haven't already, I'd encourage you to have a good look at that. And Bonas MacFarlane is here to help with any preparation, education advisory, assessments for your children. And we put several children into Swiss schools in the last 6 months, and we work with hundreds of families who are going to schools in other countries and universities as well. So thank you very much to our speakers, particularly to Alex and for Guy in London, who's put it all together. And have a good rest of the day and stay safe, everybody. Thank you.